Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. I'm super excited because we're finally back with our Premier League review show, The Hangover for Game Week 31. And we've moved this to Sunday night so that it's a little bit more in time as well with like all of the football that's going on. And I'm joined by my lovely co-host. So Kendall, I'll start with you. How's it going?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Nice that we're finally all together. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be good.
Yeah, and Soph, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you, especially after obviously the result that we've just had. So I've got a smile on my face, and it's great, as Kendall says, to finally do a show all together. It's been a long time coming, but we've made it.
we've made it finally. And so I think that you're the only one who's like actually happy about this week's results. But let's start off with maybe a neutral game, which was West Ham 2, Arsenal 2, which is something that I surely was not expecting at all. Could be absolutely crucial in the title race. And for the second time in a row, Arsenal have drawn after going 2 goals up. So that kind of makes me think like, is the pressure getting to them? Is momentum not on their side? And they were really in cruise control after 10 minutes when Jesus and Odegaard scored, and Odegaard's goal was insane, by the way. But then Ben Rama had a penalty, and then Saka missed a penalty, which is shocking as well. And then Bowen had a really good goal. So if I'll start with you, what do you kind of make about Arsenal drawing and maybe like drawing 2 games in a row after going 2-0 up, like you would expect them with the quality that they have shown this season to maybe be seeing out those games?
Yeah, I feel defensively, Arsenal, without Saliba there, I think that's a massive loss for them. I think you've noticed that over the last few games. I know Holding obviously has stepped in, but I mean, you saw today, I felt like Holding was constantly under pressure, and West Ham were kind of targeting that area. So I feel like not having him there, I think, has affected them. But I think you have to question the mentality as well. Like you say, when they're coming under pressure last few games, obviously with the momentum that City are now building, is that now starting to get to Arsenal? And look, I'm not going to be sat here saying it's over for Arsenal, that's it. But you do have that feeling today that was kind of a big moment in the title race. Like that's 2 big points dropped. The Liverpool one, you can kind of accept a bit more to go into Anfield and play in the first half the way that they did. No team really does that. So I think that one is a bit more acceptable. But today, I think there's just 2 massive points dropped. And like I say, the momentum definitely feels like it's swinging that way in Man City at the moment. But it's the Premier League and we love it. And we just know that week by week, anything can happen and it can change in an instant. So I still think they're very much there. But it's tight. For a neutral, I mean, what a title race to witness, though.
Yeah, I personally like, since Arsenal's in London, like I don't know how you feel about it. So like for me,
It's
since Arsenal's in London, I'm
it's
like
horrible for me. It's horrible.
but like for me, Man City have won it so many times. I'm like, whatever, let them have another. But for
Yeah.
Arsenal, I'm like, oh no, I can't have them win. Kendall, what do you think? Like now, City are within 4 points of Arsenal, but they do have a game in hand, and they've been scoring goals for fun. Realistically, like they looked fire versus Bayern Munich in the Champions League. Another 3 goals scored this weekend as well. So do you think that the title race is kind of like going City's way now?
Yeah, it's weird because I've backed Arsenal throughout the season in terms of like I've said that I think they're going to win the league. Because every test they were facing, they were coming through it really well. They were like coming into games winning 3-0, 4-0, things like that. And now that it's actually, everyone was being waiting till the business end of the season now because they're like, Arsenal's going to fall under the pressure. They don't have the experience. Man City do. And I was like, look, every single test they faced, they passed so far. Like, just wait and see what happens. Lo and behold, last few games, they've struggled. I mean, we beat West Ham 5-1 and we were not good on that day. We weren't good. And they were worse. And that was at their place as well. So it's not like as if West Ham just suddenly had like an unbelievable game or whatever. Obviously I didn't see the game today because I have been at Newcastle women's game this afternoon. But yeah, it just seems to be a little bit, they are feeling the pressure now. I know they've got a couple of injuries, obviously with Saliba and things. And just the last few games that Saliba's been out, they haven't looked as good and as solid at the back specifically. So whether or not that's affecting them, I really don't know. But yeah, for Saka to miss a penalty, I actually didn't realise that had happened. But yeah, that's very unusual. So maybe the pressure is getting to them. And this is where the problem is because City have a game in hand. and they are very used to this pressure. They have a lot of experience in a title race. So yeah, it's not if I was an Arsenal fan, I did ask a couple of Arsenal fans today when I'd seen the result. When I got out of St James's Park, I was like, "Are you guys worried now?" Because they kept saying they weren't worried, and I was like, "Are you actually worried now?" And lo and behold, they said, "Yeah, we're actually we're really worried
I
now."
think
So
we have to think as well, Newcastle are going to play a big part in this title race because obviously Arsenal have still got to come to St James's Park, haven't they? So I feel like that
yeah.
could be a really crucial game as well for them. So yeah, time will tell, I
Oh my
guess,
god!
on that
Imagine
title.
we stop them getting Champions League last year. Imagine we stop them winning the title this year. They'll hate us for like forever and a day. They'll hate us.
I just like to say that Chelsea still have to play both of these teams. So
Yeah.
True.
Who knows? I do think back to like 2015-16 when we had a really crap season and we came in 10th and we were down 2-0 to Spurs and then we tied 2-2 to basically ensure that
Was that the chaos at the bridge?
Yeah,
like the
battle
had
of
like
the
a madness.
bridge.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That game was insane. So I'm thinking like, can we like, get to that again, and maybe we have like an influence over who wins the title again. PSB says odds checker now have odds for Man City to win the league at 69%. And I'm just taking a look at their fixtures as well, just to see like who has the more difficult fixtures. And Arsenal face Southampton, Man City, Chelsea, Newcastle. So they have like 3 games. Well, I don't. The Chelsea game at this point, I don't even know. Brighton, Forest, Wolves, and then Man City face Brighton, Arsenal, Fulham, West Ham, Leeds, Everton, Chelsea, Brentford. So looking at that, at least in my opinion, I think that Man City have more favorable fixtures. But what do you think?
I think Man City have got about 15 games left and Arsenal have only got 8. So someone was saying yesterday, like somewhere along those lines, obviously because Man City have got like Champions League as well and FA Cup as well. So they're going to have to, obviously they're masters at this point. They've got a squad good enough. They're going to have to manage their time really, really well and their squad really well. Whereas Arsenal have just got to focus on the league now. So I don't know whether that's going to help them in that at all. But yeah, it's looking. I'll be so bad. It's not me. Honestly, I am. Like this is bad enough. Champions League places is bad enough. I don't need to go through title race anytime soon. I don't know if I could handle it. Honestly, I don't.
It would be super cool for you to be able to hear like Newcastle with the Champions League music as well.
Definitely.
So if that's like a good point as well, like already 3-0 up against Bayern Munich in the Champions League. They obviously have to go away, but realistically, you would think like 3 goals is probably like quite a bit of a deficit for them to come up. So maybe they even like, I don't think that they would necessarily rest players, but we saw like Erling Haaland come out have time to rest for that game. But maybe if they can get an early goal or 2, they can already start resting players for the Premier League game.
Definitely. I think that 3-0 in the first leg, I'm not going to say it's done because I feel like Bayern Munich will have more of a say at their place. I even felt, to be fair, in that City game, I know it was 3-0, but I felt at the start in particular, Bayern Munich actually had a few chances. Pep said, didn't he, felt like he aged 10 years after that game. It wasn't like all said and done in that, but I just feel like 3-0 is a big advantage to take there. I mean, you've mentioned the likes of Haaland already. If I'm Haaland, I'll be fuming, by the way. That's happened about 4 times this season. He's been on a hat-trick and Pep's pulled him off. I'll be fuming. I'll be like, let me get my hat-trick and then take me off. But no, I feel like Pep obviously is a genius at doing it. He's got a squad good enough to rotate, as Kendall said there. And I just feel like 3-0 is a bit too much to overturn for Bayern Munich. I still think Bayern Munich will have more of a say in that second leg and it might be a bit more nervy for City. But I can see City going through after that advantage.
Yeah, it's really crazy that you say that because I think Erling Haaland already has like a ridiculous amount of hat tricks this season.
And he's got like 47 goals this season already or something, hasn't he? And 32 in the league or something.
Yeah.
That's absolutely bananas.
He only needs 2 more now, and there's like however many games they've got left, 8 games or something, and he only needs 2 more to beat the record.
Oh my god, this guy!
Like, what is that? Like, I literally can't.
Like, that's
the chances of him doing that against Arsenal as well. Just couldn't write it. Ridiculous.
Yeah, that game's going to be massive. Like that's going to be so big in deciding the title race. Like if City beat Arsenal in that match, I really think that it's basically there. So I want to move along to Aston Villa 3, Newcastle. Sorry, Ken. And Villa, I was quite surprised that they won 3-0 and they closed the gap to top four as well, which is super surprising. They sit 6 points behind Newcastle in fourth, but Newcastle do have a game in hand. But I feel that they've kind of like sneakily made their way into the top four. And of course, Ollie Watkins was the star of the show, almost scored in the opening minute and hit the post. But then he set up Ramsey and then he got 2 back. So, Ken, I'll go to you as our resident Newcastle fan here. What did you make of the game?
We were not in that game for 1 minute yesterday. We did not get a hold on the game. We were so sloppy, so poor. Probably the worst that I've ever seen us under Eddie Howe, like ever, even like in the early stages when we weren't winning games. Like just the gameplay was horrendous. And it's no disrespect to Aston Villa because they were so good that we weren't allowed to get in the game. But they made us look bang average, and no other side's been able to do that this season at all. Even like when we went away to the Etihad and City beat us, we didn't look as bad as we did yesterday. Like we just didn't do anything. Everyone was just really bad yesterday. I honestly think I was really happy with the lineup before when it had came out and before the game, and I was quite glad because I knew Aston Villa the way that they were playing. They were one of the teams on form in the league. The way Unai Emery's got them set up is really, really good. And I knew that it would be difficult, but the way that we set up, I was like, look, we've got pace, we've got power. He's gone all out attack. Gordon started. I was like, you know what? I really like this team. I'm never saying that again. I'm never saying that again, that I like the team. That's it. Over. I'm moaning about it every single week from this point onwards. It was so bad. And I think tactically yesterday, unfortunately, I think he just got it wrong, Eddie Howe, which is really unusual. I think we needed Sean Longstaff in midfield. And I know that, like, obviously, as I said, I was happy with the lineup. I think a lot of us were before the game. As the game went onwards, I was like, yeah, it's just wrong. We set up wrong, and Aston Villa didn't even allow us to get one little foot in the game yesterday. So, yeah, really, really poor. And to be, in all fairness, I honestly think the result genuinely flattered us yesterday because it should have been about 5-0. But it just so happened that they hit the post about 3 or 4 times. They hit the bar once. So, yeah, it just so happened that I didn't fall for them yesterday. But yeah, we were bad. I'm just hoping that's out of the way now. I'm hoping that's it. That's the bad result, bad performance of the season. We've got to really focus now. And I did say it was the hardest game we had left. Because Arsenal, I know we've got Arsenal still, but it's not bothering me too much because I'm not expecting to beat Arsenal. Whereas Villa away is like, it was definitely the hardest game left for me, and it's over and done with now. So 15 out of 18 points out of the last couple of games, 5 games. I'm fine with that. I think I'm okay with it.
I've seen Chelsea fans be like, we just need like 4 points out of the remaining games. But Soph, any thoughts on Newcastle, kind of what's going on?
Did you? I agree with Kendall.
Yeah,
I did watch the game. I thought Ollie Watkins, was phenomenal. Like, I haven't seen any striker bully like Newcastle's centre back like he did yesterday. He was just on fire. It seemed like anything he touched was going in yesterday. Obviously hit the post really early on, which kind of was a sign of what's to come in that game. He was just a constant threat. But I think with Newcastle, it's a blip. Like, every team has a day like that, doesn't it? Like, it happens. We had one against Newcastle not long ago. Like, you have one of them days where just none of the players seem to turn up. It just doesn't seem to click. And I just think, don't really dwell on it. Newcastle, I think, have had a great season. I hope personally that Newcastle get top 4 along with us, because I think it'd be great to see them in the Champions League. And I don't know, no offence to you, but I don't see Chelsea or Spurs there. I want to see Newcastle there, because I think that this season Newcastle have been very consistent. But for me, it's one of them. It's a blip. I think Villa under Emery have been in great form lately, out there grinding in front of their fans as well. It just felt right, didn't it, yesterday? And all of their players were proper up for it. But my standout, like I say, is Ollie Watkins. I feel like he's a player who, I mean, Emery just knows how to get the best out of his strikers, doesn't he? We've seen it time and time again. But Ollie Watkins just seems to be going from strength to strength at the minute.
Yeah. Absolutely. And thankfully, he was like the only good thing about my fantasy team, to be honest. We have a question.
I was glad yesterday. I was like, we lost, but it's fine because Ollie Watkins was my captain. So he ended up getting me like 36 FPL points yesterday. So honestly, that was the saving grace of yesterday. Someone was like, how can you even say that after just being battered for you? I was like, literally, I'm taking any positive that I can take. I'm
Yeah,
taking the
you got
positive.
to.
I didn't captain him. I captained Kane, and he got a 2-pointer. I'm so sad. I've been doing so bad in fantasy this year. But Kendall, we have a question for you. Do you think that it was Unai Emery that was the difference? I thought Newcastle were tactically outplayed. And while you answer this, I'm just gonna fix my blinds because it's really bothering me.
I don't think it was specifically Unai Emery like yesterday. I think just across like the whole past few months since Unai Emery's come in, I think he's just made Villa a really, really good team. They know how to play football systematically. They're really, really good. And as a unit, they're very good. And obviously coming towards the European spots now, they're fantastic. But as I said, yeah, I don't think it was Emery that got it tactical right, because they've been playing like that for a long time, so they just knew what they needed to do. We beat them 4-0 earlier on in the season under Gerrard, and so obviously they've learned from that, and we did not. We went the opposite way. I just think Eddie Howe got it genuinely tactically wrong yesterday, to start off with, and unfortunately because they were so good, it didn't allow us to even change it tactically going forward from that point, because they were just too good and we couldn't even get like 1% into the game yesterday. So I think Unai Emery's got them playing fantastically, but I don't think it was like specifically to do with yesterday, if that makes sense. I just think across the board he's got them playing really, really well.
Kendall, what's your thoughts on the Gordon situation as well? Gordon obviously got a start yesterday after he kind of like threw his toys at the Prem. I thought that was a bit of an odd one. I get why Eddie done it. He's thinking he's trying to reward him for obviously the substitute and whatnot, but has he really merited a start for you at the minute, like for Newcastle? You've been flying it as you are, really.
This is the thing. So obviously I think he's only started once for us prior to yesterday. And the cameos that he's had off the bench, he's been really, really good. And then I was a bit gutted when I saw his behaviour the other day, because I was like, I get it from both sides. I get it if you weren't happy with it when you watched it, and I also get it from like his point of view, where he will be upset that he was subbed on and then subbed off, because it's not very often that happens in a game. And I was kind of glad to see that he wanted to carry on playing. But I just didn't like the way he behaved with Eddie Howe, because Eddie Howe's not that sort of person either. Like, you don't need to be aggressive towards him. He's just not like that. So I was surprised that he was starting yesterday, but I was also quite glad, because the last 2 games we've played pretty poorly in the first half, and I thought, you know what, there's no harm in changing it, and I was quite glad yesterday. But for me, he was poor yesterday. I don't blame him, because again, as I say, he hasn't started much. He hasn't played that much. And yeah, it wasn't probably a great game to go into to start, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. But for me, probably wouldn't be starting anytime soon again. I think he's probably more of an impact sub at this stage. And we just need to keep with the same starting 11 that we've had pretty much throughout the season, because Sean Longstaff was the missing guy yesterday, and he's played every game in the league so far this season except yesterday. So yeah, I think we just need to go back to same old, I think, now.
Yeah, and so looking at kind of like that Spurs lost as well, you think that like top 4 is basically like Newcastle's to lose?
It's hard to say, isn't it? Because, like I say, like this league is crazy, and from one day to the next, like it just seems to swing around. Like it's madness. But for me, like looking at the teams who are most consistent, Newcastle, you'd say, one of the most consistent teams this season. I wouldn't call Spurs consistent. Brighton, actually, even Aston Villa are kind of creeping up into it now as well. Like, I think there's a lot of teams competing for that extra place. And obviously, you look at us. Obviously, a lot of people are thinking, we're kind of assured now after that win today. But with our injuries and whatnot as well, we've still got a few tough games. I've already mentioned we've got to play Aston Villa still. So I think it's hard. But for me, like I say, I hope Newcastle and us get top 4. That's what I want to see at the end of the season. Because I feel like Newcastle have been consistent throughout this season, and they deserve that after the season they've had. But yeah, it's just a crazy league, and you just can never call it at all.
Yeah, it is. I do really feel that Man United and Newcastle are going to make top 4, honestly. But taking a look at United, obviously a great 2-0 win, and to play left in the season, they play Chelsea, Spurs, Villa, Brighton, West Ham, Wolves, Bournemouth, Fulham. Oh, and you have it already pops up like this pre-match with like the training match versus Wrexham, which was super cool. I saw like the announcement on social media, and I thought that was like,
love that. Yeah,
that was the most well done social media post ever. But how did you find the game versus Forest today?
fact we got a clean sheet as well, I'm absolutely buzzing because going into it, I'll be honest, after the injuries, I mean, it felt like on Thursday, genuinely, it felt like our season just capitulated. Like, and I know a lot of people are like, you still got internationals who are playing, but if you look at the drop off in quality when you lose the likes of Martinez and Varane at the back, like they've been so fundamental to us this season. And my heart just broke when Martinez in particular went down in the manner that he did. After all the tackles he's done this season, and he goes down like that, it was just like a freakish thing to happen. But I think considering the injuries we've got, for us to get a clean sheet of that, it could have been a really dodgy fixture for us today. I was nervous going to, obviously, their ground, they're fighting relegation, they're going to be proper up for it, and you feel like the injuries would have given them a bit of encouragement as well today as well. Yeah, I'm happy. I thought it was a solid performance from us. And again, and I've said it many times this season, and the Sevilla game was another one where I felt like we should have scored more goals than we did. The fact that we've only come away with 2-0 is my only disappointment from it, really. But it was all about the win today, and luckily we got those 3 points.
Yeah, I don't know, from like a neutral perspective as well, I was thinking how massive Marcus Rashford has been for you guys this season, and with him out injured for, I've seen that it's like another 2-ish weeks or so, but like how that would affect United as well.
Yeah, well, like, he's been massive for us this season. His goals have been crucial to our success this season, no two ways about it. And even when he hasn't been scoring, he's kind of offered us that pace and the break. He's always been the guy to try and drive at players. And unfortunately, like, I know Sancho's been getting a few starts, but Sancho just hasn't been that guy. He just looks like he's lacking confidence. He hasn't seemed to back himself against the fullback, whereas Rashford, will always back himself. So he gives us that X factor as well, if you like. Rumours are he could possibly be fit for the second leg against Sevilla. The only thing I do hope, even though that would be amazing, I just hope we don't force him back. We've seen it in the past with Rashford where we forced him back and then it's ended up being even worse than what it was originally. So I just hope that we do look at it properly before rushing him back. But no two ways about it. From now until the end of the season, we need Marcus Rashford back if we want to cement that top 4 because his goals are just so crucial to us.
Yeah, I feel like he really has just, come into the player that I always thought that he was, because I saw a lot of people on Twitter last year like, oh, we should just get rid of him. Like, he hasn't been good this season. And I was like, I don't know. I just feel like he's having an off season. Like, I really feel that he's such a talented player. Kendo, what do you make about this Man United side? Like this season, I know you didn't watch the game today, so I won't ask you about the game.
No, I did hear that the second goal was a really, really good team goal. I think Delo scored the second goal. So, yeah, but I haven't seen it. But yeah, I think they've played some games where you've looked really, really good, and then other games I've watched, I'm like, ooh, I like, it's not. The football hasn't been really, really good. It's just been very like weird games, but they've still been getting results. But yeah, I think the teams played really well. I think the signings that they made, specifically in the summer, were really, really good. Like Martinez and things like that. So he's going to be a big, big miss. Obviously, Varane as well. Is he back already, or is he still?
He's out for the season as well.
Oh, is he out for the season as well? Oh my god, I didn't know that. I knew Martinez, but I didn't realise Varane was out for the season. I just knew he was injured. So there's a couple of people missing there. Obviously, Shaw's been missing, and Rashford as well, who's been really good. I think this is probably Rashford's best season since he was like just on the coming up for Manchester United when he was younger. So he's played some really good seasons, so he's been another big miss. And again, you guys have got FA Cup, you guys have got Europa League and the league as well. So that's going to have to be, Ten Hag's going to really have to show his mettle here and prove how good of a coach he is, because I do think Ten Hag's a fantastic coach. I know when I used to live in Holland, like, he was revered very, very, very highly, just as a coach. So I think, I do personally think that the top 4 as it is now, that'll be how it stays. Well, 3rd and 4th might be hit and miss, obviously, between us and Manchester United, but I think now they've just got it's going to really test the waters and hopefully hold on. But this is the problem now, because they've got so many games. We don't have any extra games. Arsenal don't have any extra games. Brighton, obviously, they've got FA Cup against. Is it against you or against Man City? Who've they got? Oh, yous, yeah. So they've got you to play.
And Maguire's suspended for that as well. So that's another centre back that we're missing.
So
my god,
that's so much of a miss for you.
Like, Bruno's suspended as well, isn't he? Or is Bruno suspended for something? Bruno
suspended. Yeah.
Sevilla.
Varane's out for a few more weeks. Like I said, they're predicting that could possibly end of the season. So Varane's out for a few weeks. Martinez obviously is out till the end of the season. Hopefully back pre-season. Maguire's suspended for the Brighton game, so we're just praying that Luke Shaw can come back, because it looks like it could be Lindelof and Luke Shaw as a centre back. But then today, Malacia was out with a sore knee apparently. Sabitzer got injured in the warm-up. It's just like everything.
It's one of them things where everything happens at once. It's just, it happens for some team. Ours was last season and everything happened. Everyone was just out at the same time. Like Trippier was out, Bruno was out, Joe Linton was out all at the same time. Liverpool did it a couple of seasons, like I think it was maybe last season or the season before. They had like a big, massive ton of injuries as well. I know Chelsea have been through it a couple of times where like just 3-4 key players have been out. It's just typical, especially when you've got so much to play for like this back end of the season as well. It's just a nightmare.
And I get like people criticising Ten Hag saying he needs to rotate more and whatever. And to be fair, he hasn't really moaned about it up until like obviously Rashford's injury. Really, that was the first real comment he said about it. But I kind of understand to an extent as well, like where he comes from, because we've seen it in the Sevilla game. He made changes to try and rest players, and then look what happened. We capitulated and we ended up losing our 2-0 win. So I just feel like the quality in our backup, if you like, is just so far off the first 11. We just haven't got that squad depth, unfortunately. Like, and that is coming back to bite us now. Is in this latter end of the season where we're still playing in obviously all competitions. We just haven't got that squad depth to rotate and compete at that level, and it's just horrible. Like you say, they say bad things comes in threes. It feels like tens at the minute for United because it just seems like we've just had a rush of everything going wrong. But a big win today, and so we'll stay positive about that. And I do believe Sevilla will be a tough test, but we're still in the game at the end of the day, and I still believe we can get it done now.
It's a really good point that you make about the rotation, because it's something that you see a lot, and something that I've seen at Chelsea at least is that we don't quite know like our best starting 11, so then you end up starting like different players. Or versus Real Madrid, was it versus? No, it was versus Brighton. One of the commentators was saying like, it seems like Chelsea are always kind of looking for like the next game, like thinking about the following game because they have so many fixtures, but that means that they're kind of like losing quality in this game, and it's like affecting us in the long run. So I think it's super difficult to kind of manage when do I rotate versus when do I play my strongest starting 11 as well.
Yeah, definitely. And there's no easy fixture, is there? There's just no easy fixture to be like, oh, we could take this one a bit lightly this weekend, because you just can't do it. You simply can't do that in the league that we're in. I'm glad I'm not. This is why I don't want to be a manager ever, because I just couldn't live for the decisions that they have to make, honestly.
Like, I'm glad I'm not the one making the decisions. Well, now we're going to talk about Chelsea. I've kind of been putting it off.
So the best still last, Kendall.
Yeah. So sad. Like, honestly, I'm just like so upset about it. Like, we went 1-0 up, ended up losing 1-2. Honestly, when we went 1-0 up, I still was fully expecting Brighton to get something out of the match because they were so dominant, and that goal really came against like the run of play, and it was like quite lucky as well, like a massive deflection. But I'm quite worried for Chelsea because I don't know. I saw like one thing that was like we have like 4 wins in 20, or like 4 wins like since the start of the year or something like that. But we play Real Madrid in the Champions League, which I think is kind of, I do think Real Madrid are probably just going to go through. And then we still have to play Man United, Brentford, Arsenal, Bournemouth, and Nottingham Forest, who are both fighting against relegation. So I feel like those are going to be quite difficult, kind of like what we saw with Bournemouth versus Spurs, and then Man City, and then Newcastle. So I'm kind of thinking, like, where do Chelsea's points come from if we continue to play how we've been playing? Ken, I'll ask that one to you.
Yeah, it's again, I just think this season, I know you're like a very realistic Chelsea fan. You're very like obviously like balance and things like that. A lot of people aren't. A lot of football fans aren't, so it's a rarity. But yeah, I just think like with Chelsea, I think you just got to resign yourself to the fact now that it's literally just get as many points as you can out of the next fixtures. Obviously, you're not fighting towards anything. Champions League is going to be really difficult to come back against Real Madrid, and the team and the club in general are at a rebuilding point now. We knew it anyway, and we knew obviously Graham Potter was kind of a long-term project manager and things like that, and that hasn't worked out. Obviously, it's also not working out with Frank Lampard, which
I kind of got why they did it at the time. I didn't. And then I spoke to Chelsea fans who had said, it's like you being in a really difficult position and saying, Angie, do you want to come and manage, like, just to see the season out? And I was like, oh, yeah, you know what? I kind of get it. It's like motivation. It's just like a familiar face, which I do kind of get. But tactically, Frank Lampard, no offence to the guy, because I think he was a fantastic footballer, but he is not the person tactically that you need to see a season out when you're actually not safe yet. You aren't going to get relegated. Don't get me wrong. You're not. It's not impossible, but it's just not going to happen. It's highly unlikely. But you're like not even safe yet. And Frank Lampard obviously was not known for his tactical prowess, to be kind to him. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just one of those seasons. This season's just going to have to get written off in history. You're going to have to learn from the mistakes. Todd Boyd's going to have to learn from his mistakes and start afresh next season. But yeah, the next few fixtures are going to be difficult. You just need 1 point. That's how I'm looking at it from an outside point of view. You need 1 point because the relegation battle from like probably 13th down is so close. It's probably moved up a little bit now, but I actually don't know what's happening down there for once in my football supporting career. I don't know what's happening at the bottom of the table, which is lovely scenes for me. But yeah, it's so close that I think you're kind of okay. As long as you get a point and you're safe, you get 40 points, I think you'll be totally fine in this season. Just going to have to get written off at this stage, unfortunately. And luckily, I don't think the City and the game against us last game of the season, I don't think they're going to matter too much, because I think the league will probably be wrapped up by then. Well, I'm hoping it is. I don't want to go another 6 games not knowing my fate. I can't be bothered. I can't deal with that mentally. So yeah, hopefully they'll be wrapped up and then it doesn't really matter too much to you guys. But it's just one of those seasons. And the last time you finished, well, maybe not this low, but the lowest that I can remember, you won the league the year after. So you never know what's going to happen. You just don't know.
True. I'm just looking at like the bottom half of the table, right? So you have Southampton in 20th with 23 points, then Leicester with 25, Forest and Everton both with 27, Leeds in 16th with 29, West Ham in 15th with 31, Bournemouth with 33, Wolves 34, Palace 36. So there's 12 points between us and Forest. So I don't think like realistically we would get relegated.
No.
But I'm so worried about our form. Like we have just been losing so many games. I'm like, I don't think that should be a possibility, but it's a bit like worrying times for Chelsea. What do you think? So
I can understand why you're worried, definitely, because your form has been obviously very down, very concerning. The Lampard appointment, look, I can see why, like Kendall said, like bring their legend back, trying to reassure the fans and just get a feel-good factor back around the ground. It just, you had too many big games, unfortunately. It was just too much of a risk, I think, to bring someone like Lampard. But I do think it's one of them where it's like short-term pain for long-term gain. I feel like you will get a quality like head coaching next season. I know Luis Enrique has been linked very strongly, who I think will be a great fit for Chelsea. And I think you've got a lot of quality players. There you go. A lot of quality players in your squad as well. Who I believe whoever does come in, like Enzo Fernandez, for example. I know you've tied him down, but it seems like a life sentence you've got him for ages. So I feel like you can kind of build a team around him. You've got a lot of quality there. I think the big thing as well that Chelsea are lacking is a goal scorer, because even against Real Madrid in the early stages, you guys had chances. You had chances. If you had like someone who was clinical, I felt like that could have been a different start to that game against Real Madrid. And I think that's been a story so often this season for you guys, where you just haven't got that clinical person in front of the goal. So I think it's right what Kendall said. I think you kind of just have to see it out now. Short-term pain for long-term gain. I don't think you'll get relegated. And I think next season it's kind of a clean slate. And like I say, for me, the first thing I'll be doing if I'm Todd Bowley is looking to get a goal scorer. I think that's what you're lacking.
yeah, it's funny as well because we already have signed Nkunku for.
I was going to say Nkunku's coming, isn't he? Yeah, I just thought of that when I said it.
Yeah, but he's also like doesn't play as a number 9 typically.
No.
So I'm kind of thinking like, where does he fit in? Then the club want to sign Joao Felix. He hasn't scored any goals. And Kendall, you know more than anybody about Joao Felix. And I was super hyped on him after the first couple of games. I was like, oh, wow, like he brings so much, because we really were lacking like a creative spark. But at this point, I think he's only scored 2 goals. So Kendall, I'll ask you.
Do you want to keep him?
For me, no.
So do you want him?
No. For me, no, because I think his cost is going to be from what I've seen quoted, like 80 to 100 million. And I think if you're going to pay that much, like I think like bring in a goal scorer who's going to bang in 20 plus goals a season, or spend the money on a DM, which we also need desperately. And I've also seen like a goalkeeper, like that position. Chelsea are also looking to get a goalkeeper in as well. So for me, like if he was cheaper, then maybe, but I just feel like he hasn't done enough to warrant being so much money. And yeah, that's kind of my opinion. Well, Kendall, I know you're super familiar with Joao Felix, so what do you think about it?
Yeah, I agree. So I backed this guy so much, like probably 2 years ago. I thought he was absolutely fantastic technically, skill wise. I think he's so good. For me, the last 2 years, well, not even the last year, I'll say probably the last season, I've seen he doesn't have, for me at this point in time, that killer instinct that I would need a second striker or a winger or a 10 or whatever to have. He just doesn't have it. And you can see it in games. Like, he's not aware of where his teammates are passing to. He's not in the right positions. He can dribble fine. He can create a chance, but it's that he just lacks that killer instinct that I need and that everyone was mourning about prior. And everyone was blaming Simeone for, which I just found was bizarre, considering Simeone is probably one of the best managers in the last 10 years to get attackers to perform. Like, there's a list as long as my arm of attackers who've been good under Simeone. And everyone was trying to blame him for the system. Now they're saying they're doing it in the fact of, well, this system's also not good and this team is also not good. So Joao Felix is not going to be good in this team. But I'm like, some blame's got to lie with him. And his ego is just a little bit, there's nothing wrong with thinking you're a good footballer and there's nothing wrong with trying to be the best. But when your ego like tumbles onto the pitch, the way you play football is affected a lot. And I see that a lot in him. I don't think he's going to go. Actually, the only thing I was going to say, I don't think he's going to go to Chelsea because Atleti are going to want at least 80 million euros for him, because they paid 120. They're not, and he's got signed an extra year. Obviously, when he went to Chelsea on loan, signed an extra year on his contract at Atleti. So he's not. They're not going to want to let him leave for any less than that because in their minds that has been absolutely a terrible business move, which they thought was going to be good at the time, hence why they paid so much money. So it's going to be a poor business move from them if they don't at least recoup 80 million of that money. And the only thing about Chelsea are probably the only club, and I say this with the most respect for people with money and people who run a football club, daft enough to pay 80 million euros for Joao Felix, because I can't see another club seeing he's sitting at Chelsea and being like, yeah, let's spend 80 million euros. I honestly can't see it. I just cannot see that happening. So I don't even know what's going to happen with him at the end of the season. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see what actually happens. And the only other way I can see it working is if Chelsea decide that they do want to keep him and we do a swap deal for somebody with money. And I have seen it talked up a lot in like kind of Atleti circles, journals and things like that it'll be a swap deal for Lukaku. Now I don't know whether that is going to happen or not. I can't see it. I think it's just something that they've thought Lukaku wants to leave. It's Chelsea wants Joao Felix. Like, it's just kind of a straight swap situation. But I don't think it'll be that simple. But yeah, I think that's the only way I can see Joao Felix staying at Chelsea long term, I think.
Yeah, I saw, I don't remember where I saw it. It was somewhere on Twitter that people saying maybe Chelsea tried to do another loan deal for Joao Felix and then tried to buy him eventually. But for me, like you said, it's just like so much money. And you do see on the pitch that he tries to go for goal when the pass is available. And that's something that, I would like to see him be a little bit more selfless in that regard. And for me as well, like, I think if you buy Joao Felix, like, I do think Mason Mount probably leaves, which I would be absolutely gutted. Maybe he leaves with or without him. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on.
Also, system-wise, if you guys don't get rid of an attacker, there's far too many similar profiles there. Havertz, Nkunku when he comes, Joao Felix. Yes, you can have a donut in a second. Joao Felix, Sterling, like Madueke, like people like that. Like the profiles are very similar across the front. And what you need is a number 9 who's like a prolific number 9. That's what you need. So it's just gonna be overkill. Like when in an already packed team where you obviously said you don't know the best starting 11 yet, so it's going to be very difficult. I don't see that deal happening. I'll be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it does, just as I've said, for all the reasons that I listed earlier, like obviously the money and things like that, and maybe a swap deal. But I just would be surprised if someone doesn't come in the summer, sporting director wise, and says like, yeah, it's just not going to be a good move for us, especially when there has already been a significant sum of money spent. I just can't see it. Surely not. I
don't know like where the money would come from, to be honest. Like I have no idea how FFP works. But
Yeah, me
surely
too.
like Chelsea need to sell quite a lot of players, and I do think that they should, at least in my opinion, be selling players this summer, because the squad is just far too bloated, and it's you see now that it's super difficult to manage. And this is another one, like I freaking forgot that Lukaku is still a Chelsea player and he's on loan with Inter, but he's coming back. I don't think that Inter are signing him full time. PSV says Chelsea need an out and out number 9, which is Lukaku. He's coming back in the summer. New coach. Do you think Lukaku has a future at the club? For me, I don't know. Like, I'm never going to say never, because anything is possible, and maybe he comes in under a new coach. But I think, like, with the fans, he would really have to just be banging in the goals, because I think that he's fallen out with them after the interview and then he didn't perform.
Yeah.
But so obviously, like, Lukaku also played for United. So what do you think about this?
I think the whole interview situation made it turn a bit toxic, like in terms of the fans towards him. Like he kind of tarnished that reputation and that relationship that he had. So I can't see, obviously, a new manager coming in, someone like Luis Enrique, I feel like could get Lukaku playing well and scoring. But like you say, he needs to hit the ground running and be in that quality form, otherwise the fans are going to get on his back. And I feel like it's one of them where if that relationship's tarnished, like every week, if it's not going well, like he's going to become that scapegoat, isn't he? And I'm not sure it's going to be a healthy thing, Lukaku coming back. But like if you guys can get money for him, then I think a move elsewhere would be better for his personal career. But like you say, you can never say never, because it depends who you get in as a coach. And if they fancy Lukaku as their number 9, like I'm sure you can make it work. But Lukaku definitely has a lot of redeeming to do for your fans, for sure.
Yeah. And Vez says, tell me how this new manager will decide out of 55 players who to keep and sell with just the preseason. Yeah, I did read somewhere that apparently Frank Lampard might offer advice, at least, to the ownership about like who he thinks. But I think you also have I don't know, right? But I think you have certain players that have kind of been on the outside, and maybe in their minds they're just kind of like, I don't want to say done with Chelsea, but like mentally somewhere else, or they want to like leave to progress their own career. So like Hakim Ziyech comes to mind, like he was meant to be in PSG, like his loan deal literally fell through. So I think like maybe he might be looking for a move away from Chelsea. And I don't know, I feel like there's a lot, like Kovacic apparently, I read, I think his contract's expiring, so he's probably going to be looking to leave as well. Christian Pulisic might be looking to leave. There's a lot of squad trimming to do. But guys, we've reached basically like the 45-minute mark, which is insane. Like I didn't think that we'd be going for so long. But thank you for joining so much. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. And so if I'll start with you, let everybody know where they can find you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again. It's been great to get on a show with Kendall and yourself. That 45 minutes has flown by. I feel like we could talk all night. There's so much going on at the minute. But yeah, thank you. My YouTube channel is Ladies in Red, so if you guys could head over there and hit the sub, I'd appreciate it. And if you want to follow me on socials, it's So Free Show on Twitter, and then So Free Show with a kiss on the end of it in Instagram. Thank you.
Amazing. And Ken, what about you?
Yeah, same for me. It's been really, really good. That 45 minutes has gone so quickly. I can't believe it. But obviously this is going to be hopefully a weekly thing, so make sure you carry on tuning in and subscribe to the ladies above. I obviously, as I've said a million times, I really should start using my YouTube channel. I don't. I really should. As I've said, I say this weekly probably for like 2 years. I just don't use it. But if you want to follow my socials, everything is on here. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, if you want to follow me on YouTube, and hopefully I will maybe start getting that channel up. I think, as I've said there's 100 times. But if you want to follow me on my socials, you can find me there. But thank you for having me again.
Yeah, I so feel that. Like, it's just like so hard, and especially, I don't know, like with this season, I'm finding it really hard to do content because I'm like, I don't even know what to talk about. I'm just sad and I don't want to be negative. But guys, thank you so much. We're going to have this weekly until the end of the season. So make sure to tune in every week at 6:30 p.m. UK time, 7:30 if you're in Spain like me. And hope that you guys have a great rest of your day, evening, whatever time you're watching this. And until next time, I'm out. Bye.